Hello again, this is Silver Saint from Silver Saint TV, and all I know is that I know nothing.com. And browsing through YouTube, I was actually looking at a couple of videos, and I came around a video from Ron Paul. And I have to be honest with you, I'm pretty much a liberal. But to define Silver Saint would be, let's say, fiscally Republican, socially Democrat, and sexually liberal. That's who the Saint is. But you know, the more I listen to Ron Paul, the more I kind of like this guy, to be honest with you. I mean, I have voted Democrat for a long time, you know, and Republicans I hate. But Ron Paul, even though he's a Republican, he's really not a Republican. You know, the more I listen to this guy, well, anyways, I want you guys to check this video. It's a pretty cool video and kind of sums it up how this guy thinks. And it has a lot of common sense. And if you don't get these, you should not be voting. If you don't get what Ron Paul is saying, I repeat, you should not be voting. So check the video out.
Allowed to do this? Why do we have a CIA that gets involved in overthrow of governments, rigging elections around the world? Then we sit back and we wonder, why do they hate us? Because we're involved and we're bombing and killing people. You know, one of the big issues going on today is the issue of torture. We now have become a nation known for torturing. Pictures have been out there early on when the Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo pictures came out. We don't see them anymore. Nobody talks about them. Torture still goes on. We farm it out to other countries. But those pictures circulate around the Muslim world. And believe me, they didn't like it. What would we think if somebody was torturing American people around the world? I mean, it would infuriate us. So what do? We find we have the information and came up and they suggested maybe we ought to look into it, and this administration was supposed to do that. So they started investigating, they had some evidence, and the CIA was involved. And guess what? The CIA destroyed all the evidence. And this administration will not pursue it. They've excused them and said, that's it, we can't find the evidence, there will be no prosecution, not one single prosecution, not one challenge to people who claim that, oh no, they're not really torturing. But it was a policy. As long as torture is a policy of America, America cannot remain great. You can't have these courts acting outside the law. And this is what is happening today. And I just am very disturbed that so many people can support issues like that. And we now have a policy. Frankly, it's been around for a while, but frankly admitted in our committees today that it is a clear-cut policy that the American president and the Attorney General can designate American citizens to be assassinated. Fascism. Now, these guys are probably the ones, there's 3 or 4 Americans on there. Nobody here is going to be on that list at least for a year or 2. But just the idea that they can do it. But they say, well, this is a bad guy. Yeah, it probably is a bad guy. But the law is supposed to protect the bad guys so that the good guys are never treated like a bad guy. But what they want to protect are secret prisons and the secret judicial system at the military courts, and they don't want to lose their ability to torture. Now, the reason the individual wasn't convicted on more crimes this week was because all the information came from torturing the guy. You know, and he was probably very much involved, but he wasn't directly involved. He was indirectly involved. But they say you can't do this in a civilian court. We have had 400 plus individuals who have been tried and convicted in civilian court. And there have been 4 convicted in military courts. And then the clamor now is, no, we can't depend on civilian courts. We have to have military courts. very, very bad precedent, and we must be, aware of this so that we hopefully can get this stopped. Talking about giving sovereign immunity to our government officials, and I would remove it all, but what about giving immunity to the whistleblowers? They're the ones who need the immunity. We have a few brave souls, especially in the foreign policy area. It came up in Vietnam, it's come up more recently, Wikileaks. Information that technically, yes, they're breaking a rule, but what is the government doing? They're breaking the law, and they're doing these horrible things. So if we have an American citizen that is willing to take the consequences and practice civil disobedience, say, this is what our government's doing, should he be locked up and imprisoned? Or should we, see him as a political hero? Maybe he is a true patriot who reveals what's going on in government. So since 9/11, we've eroded our civil liberties. We went over there to teach them a lesson. With the loss of 6,000 American military people, 35,000 people who have been severely injured, and tens of thousands who have come back with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and that is what it's costing us. I mean, we are losing. Where is the punishment? We're punishing the American people. You have to change the foreign policy, and nobody wants to do that. We're going to run out of money, and maybe we have to, but hopefully your generation will say, we'll change the foreign policy right now. Just think of what the effort to recruit individuals so angry at us to commit suicide terrorism against us, if we weren't over there in their countries. We're in all these countries, and how many people, talking about the loss of American life, how many foreigners have been killed? Just the other day, again, one of our cruise missiles, our drone missiles, went into Pakistan. I mean, we're at war with Pakistan. It killed 30 people. Oh, that's collateral damage. But you know what? Every bit of collateral damage invites another family to hate us. One of the greatest, or the worst, I guess, worst achievements of the previous administration was to convince the American people that they come here to kill us because we're free and prosperous. That is total nonsense. If you continue to believe that, we can't solve our problems. The people, and there's been a few who have done serious studies about who and why, what motivates a suicide terrorist. And the number one cause is not religion. The number one cause is occupation of a foreign country. And that is why we ought to give up occupying foreign countries. It's not part of our Constitution, and we ought to bring the troops home before the country is total bankrupt and the dollars destroyed. Allow these funds to be spent here at home. But to spend them overseas and continue this process, it is not going to do anything but build more enemies. So as we work hard, we create more and more enemies. And there's no reason to suspect that we are much safer as long as there are going to be more enemies developing around the world. So changing foreign policy doesn't seem to be that difficult for me. I've been asked this question before. Well, what would you do if you had anything to say with it about these troops overseas? How would you get out? Wouldn't it cause chaos? No, the chaos is because we're there. We just marched in those countries. Let's just march out. This is before 9/11, we were spending $40 billion on intelligence gathering. And they had a lot of information gathered to indicate that there was enough information to get fair warning. I mean, what's the CIA supposed to do? They're supposed to give us intelligence maybe to protect us, but they ignore that and they go off and fix elections and get involved in starting new wars. So this to me is something that we all should be able to rally around and say that we will not put up with it any longer. The attitude that it is now permissible to have preventive war. Preventive war is aggression. America is not about aggression. Today, people are starting to get worried about China. Bernanke today and yesterday have been complaining they want to blame China for everything because China's currency is too weak, you know, and they want to make it stronger. So they want to blame China, and they won't look upon ourselves. But guess what? China happens to be a country where they work, they produce products, they save their money, they invest their money, they buy up oil wells and mineral rights around the world, they loan us money. It sounds like they've caught the capitalist bug, and we have this dependency on them. So I don't think this is going to work, and in due time, this will have to change.